They discovered a shocking truth about morning gratitude that transforms every day. Few knew what truly happened that night in the quiet village of Bethlehem. The air held a certain tension. It tingled as if the universe was ready to unveil a divine secret. Just as dawn crept over the horizon, a whisper circulated among the villagers something miraculous was about to occur. Mary, a young woman of unimaginable courage, prepared for the most significant moment of her life. She felt the weight of the world pressing down on her, a mix of fear and faith swirling in her chest. The stars, bright against the night sky, seemed to twinkle conspiratorially. Would they try to warn her or guide her? The ambiguity gnawed at her gut. An angel had come to her. This celestial being spoke of a child, a savior, a beacon of hope. But the dilemma loomed. How could she, a simple girl, carry such an enormous blessing? It was a miracle wrapped in layers of uncertainty. Her heart raced as she weighed her doubts against the promise she had received. Outside, the chorus of roosters heralded a new day. But for Mary, it was anything but ordinary. As the first rays of sun illuminated the dusty streets, the villagers stirred, unaware of the sacred drama unfolding just beyond their sight. They went about their routines, oblivious to the miracle that lay in wait. But for Mary, gratitude was a bittersweet ache. She yearned to embrace her destiny, yet feared the consequences it might bring. Suddenly, strange phenomena began to occur. The animals in the fields grew restless. They sensed something was amiss. Even the winds seemed to desist, holding their breath in anticipation. A ripple of unease mixed with expectation buzzed through the village. What did all this mean? Then, as if responding to her anguish, a brilliant star ignited in the sky, a beacon of promise against the dawning light. It was unlike anything anyone had witnessed before. The villagers halted, gazing up. A hush fell over the crowd. But what could they know of the heavy burden resting on Mary's soul? Her trembling hands cradled a light no one else could see, but would they ever understand the weight of it? Each moment swelled with urgency, an electric charge in the atmosphere. What truth awaited them in this extraordinary dawn? As Mary looked to the heavens, a single thought pierced through her swirling emotions. Was her heart ready for the love it was destined to encounter? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the light of that miraculous star bathed the village in a gentle glow, the air thickened with a sense of purpose. The villagers, rooted in their routines, were mere spectators to a scene unfolding beyond their everyday lives. But for Mary, the moment marked a profound intersection of destiny and doubt. Her heart beat in unison with the whispers of a future yet to be born. The stillness was shattered as a group of shepherds, drawn by an unseen force, made their way to the outskirts of town. They seemed an unlikely assembly, ragged, weathered, yet filled with an inexplicable fervor. As they approached, a spark ignited within Mary. Could they be messengers of this grand event? The shepherds spoke in hushed, reverent tones, their eyes wide with wonder, recounting visions of angels that burst forth from the heavens, declaring tidings of great joy. A Savior is born, they proclaimed, their joy spilling over like a rushing river. In the town of David, just as foretold, they looked to Mary, who stood there, a vessel of faith beset by uncertainty. Would she embrace the message they brought, or would anxiety cloud her acceptance? As the shepherd spoke, their words surged through her, intermingling with her own fears and hopes. Yet she wondered, did they grasp the true magnitude of what they celebrated? To them, the arrival of a Savior was a deliverantia declaration that change was at hand for a world yearning for light. But within her, the reality was far more intimate and intricate. The call to motherhood seemed both a benediction and a burden. Among the villagers, curiosity grew. Murmurs began to ripple through the crowd as more flocked near, drawn by the shepherd's exclamations. Faces marked by weariness creased in confusion, their daily lives overshadowed by this incursion of spirituality. A question floated in the air, palpable and heavy. What did this mean for them? Could their lives, too, be interwoven into this divine narrative? Mary felt a stirring within her spirit, a quiet echo of her own inquiries. As the villagers gazed at her with wide eyes filled with both anticipation and skepticism, she sensed the urgency of her decision. Was she simply a vessel for a miracle that would reshape the lives of many, or was she also meant to change the hearts of those who doubted? Yet, as they listened to the shepherd's exuberant tales, Mary's thoughts turned inward again. How could she, a mere girl unremarkable, ordinary, bear the weight of such a divine promise? It was a miracle she did not seek, bestowed upon her as if sealed in a sacred scroll. The shepherds, voices laced with hope, ignited a flicker of courage within her whisper of affirmation that perhaps she was meant for this. The crowd grew bolder, their questions weaving in and out as they sought clarity in the midst of confusion. "What shall we do?" one asked, urgency braiding through the air. "What will become of us?" echoed another. And with every protestation, a deeper question loomed. In seeking the Savior, would they inadvertently blind themselves to the light already present in their midst, the light that flickered within Mary? Could her heart, with all its travails, become a beacon not just for her own salvation, but for the salvation of all who dared to believe? As she pondered their inquiries, her gaze fell back to the star shining brightly above, a reminder of the promise cutting through the shadows of doubt. She felt the heat of countless eyes upon her, each filled with hope, fear, and expectation. Could her wavering heart offer the world the love it craved, even if she herself was still figuring out what that love meant? In this extraordinary time of waiting and wonder, she reflected deeply, was it not true that the questions we hold can illuminate the way to understanding? Would the unfolding journey of faith require more than just a miraculous birth? And so, under the luminous embrace of that guiding star, Mary pondered her path forward, grappling with what it means to be a bearer of both light and love in a world filled with uncertainty. How could she, in her vulnerability, anchor the hopes of many? What whispers of destiny awaited her as the dawn unfurled its sacred promise? As the villagers stood in anticipation, the night deepened, wrapping the scene in a profound stillness. The words of the shepherds lingered, swirling like the whispers of the wind. Mary, still within the throng, felt an alien sense of clarity piercing through the fog of her many questions. In this gathering of the heart, amidst the wonder of her condition, she sensed an invitation to deeper reflection. One elder, his beard white like the edge of the clouds, stepped forward, his voice breaking the hushed silence. "Tell us, young Mary, what do you know of this promise? What is the truth that has been revealed to you?" His eyes, aged and wise, searched hers, seeking the light that they believed was destined to illuminate their lives. The crowd leaned in closer, and Mary felt their collective curiosity enveloping her. Her heart raced as she mirrored the elder's earnestness. "I am but a vessel, an unworthy one at that," she admitted, her voice trembling ever so slightly. The angel spoke of hope and joy, of peace that surpasses understanding. "But I too am filled with questions. How can the birth of a child change the world?" Murmy voices erupted once more as doubt mingled with hope. "We have waited for deliverance, but who can trust in the unknown?" Another villager raised a hand, laden with stories of despair and longing. "What good can come from a child born to a humble mother in the shadows?" Mary's gaze shifted between the earnest faces around her and the star overhead, brilliant against the canvas of night. Perhaps it was not only the birth of a Savior they were witnessing, but also a call to transparency in their own hearts. She considered that the truth they sought might also require an unveiling of their disbelief and awakening that demanded vulnerability. Could it be, she began slowly, as words formed around her thoughts, that in our quest for signs and wonders, we forget what is already woven into the fabric of our lives? The light we seek may dwell not only in the divine, but also in the small moments of gratitude we take for granted. A stir of murmurs traveled through the crowd, some nodding, while others held their breath, grappling with this notion. The connection between gratitude and their waiting hearts began to blossom like a flower in the soft morning sun. "What do you mean?" asked a young woman, her eyes flickering with intrigue. "How can our mornings reflect a truth when we awaken to the same burdens?" Another voice rose, softer this time. "Is there power in our day-to-day lives sprinkled with appreciation for even the smallest blessings?" The crowd murmured again, the seeds of understanding taking root. Mary's spirit lifted at their engagement, sensing a shared journey unfolding. Perhaps every dawn holds an opportunity for thanksgiving. Through our gratefulness, we unlock the potential of today. Each moment we cherish becomes a step toward recognizing the extraordinary in the ordinary. In that moment, she recognized that her own journey, one marked by uncertainty and divine grace, was not isolated, but mirrored in the lives of those around her. A shared truth began to rise like the first light of dawn, revealing the beauty hidden in common experiences. Gratitude might indeed be the transformative thread binding her destiny with the fate of her community. But just as the air filled with newfound hope, an unsettling thought emerged: if gratitude could open hearts, what lay on the horizon for them all? Would they be ready to see the light surrounding them if it came not as a grand spectacle, but found expression in the quiet of their daily lives? Thus, as they mulled over her words in the luminous glow of the star, a powerful question lingered in the air, calling each heart to delve deeper. What if the greatest miracle was not the saving act alone, but the awakening of gratitude in the hearts of those who felt lost and yearning? Who would step forward to embrace the light born from within, to lead others toward this horizon of hope? As the murmurs of the crowd began to settle into thoughtful silence, the elder reflected deeply on Mary's words. The flickering torchlight danced across his face, revealing lines of both wisdom and worry. "We must ponder this, for this promise lies in our response to what is given," he finally said, his voice resonating gently with a weight that felt rare. "If the dawn holds a lesson for us, what will we choose to learn?" The villagers exchanged glances, each considering their own lighter darkness that had been cast over their lives. Deep within the heart of the assembly, a farmer stood, his brow furrowed under the weight of his daily toil. But how can Thanksgiving help when we wake to rations that dwindle and land that refuses to yield? He challenged respectfully, his voice barely louder than a whisper. Mary felt the gravity of his question, a mirror reflecting the soul's doubt. "Perhaps," she replied, her heart engaging with the pain that lingered in his tone. "The promise of a child does not merely arrive to change our circumstances, but rather to change how we see them. In each hardship lies the potential for grace. We may not control the seasons, but can we not choose how we respond when the frost bites down?" The air thickened with contemplation as some villagers turned to the stars that still twinkled like an awakening chorus. The sky seemed to nod at Mary's present wisdom, echoing her sentiments of hope even amid trials. One woman, her hands calloused but gentle, spoke up. "If a child is our beacon, then how do we become mirrors of that light? What if our gratitude grows roots, reaching into the soil of despair?" "Our roots," the elder mused, his fingers tapping lightly against his chin. "In every rooted plant, there comes both support and sustenance. Our gratitude could indeed feed our souls, binding us not only to one another, but to the divine." Encouraged, Mary pressed onward. How wondrous that in our moments of sorrow, we might also find the seeds of joy. In every dawn, can we not rise with intent? Let us greet the sun by recalling kindnesses we might have overlooked through a neighbor's laughter, a child's smile, or the steadfastness of love. The farmer nodded slowly, weighing her words like grains in his hand. Easier said than done. Yet I sense a fragrance of truth, he admitted. Might we unlock within us a deeper reservoir of strength to face the burdens that feel so heavy? As the crowd stirred, some nodded in agreement, while others remained still, bodies trembling with anticipation and uncertainty. It was true. Many wished to believe in a brighter horizon, but found such hope elusive amid their own shadows. Mary saw their struggles mirrored in her own heart, where the child within her stirred in quiet anticipation of radiant love. However, she warned, gratefulness is no easy task. In our practice, we may unearth fears and forgotten pain. How many of us wrestle with memories that cling to old wounds? To embrace gratitude is to seek the light while navigating the dark. What then must we do to find clarity and resolve? A quiet pause unfolded, the weight of her question hanging delicately in the air. The villagers seemed to lean into their own reflections, as if each heartbeat echoed, asking what it would mean for their lives to embrace this path of awakening. Could we gather together, then? Suggested a young man whose eyes shone with a spark of determination. What if we share our dawns, each one rising to recount our blessings? Might our meetings be spaces where gratitude breathes life and takes shape? Mary felt the fire of hope flicker anew, igniting the hearts around her. They were beginning to see the horizon widen, a possibility emerging from the depths of their weariness. Yet, in that same moment, an unsettling thought crested within her mind. Could a shared journey into gratitude truly possess the power to heal hearts that have known only sorrow? As the villagers began to murmur about their new plans for gathering, the questions remained pressing, shrouded with uncertainty. Would they be willing to open old wounds and face the truth they had long buried? And what might they discover about their communal spirit through the crucible of gratitude that awaited them? As the moon began to wane, casting a gentle glow over the assembled villagers, Mary felt a stirring deep within her soul. Their energies shifted, and an unspoken understanding wove itself into the fabric of their gathering. The conversations faded into an eager anticipation. Perhaps this new path could lead them toward a different way of seeing their lives. "Let us come together at dawn," the elder said, his voice steady against the backdrop of the flickering flames. "But in our gathering, I implore you to consider, it will not be enough simply to recount our blessings. We must delve into the very roots that have kept us bound in darkness. What holds us captive may reveal the pathway towards freedom." The farmer listened intently, a mixture of hope and trepidation flickering behind his eyes. "What if we are afraid to unearth the very roots we must grasp?" he asked, vulnerability evident in his voice. "Will it not be easier to cling to the familiar, even the pain we know?" Mary recognized the fear that resonated within him and the echoes of doubt that floated through the crowd. "Indeed, it may be easier," she acknowledged. "But the dawn we speak of requires courage. The challenge lies not merely in gathering the light, but in confronting the shadows that have kept it hidden from you. In that moment, an older woman, her silver hair glowing like strands of moonlight, spoke up. "My son has wandered for years, far from these lands and from us. I fear that speaking his name among our blessings will only bring forth the pain of his absence." Her voice trembled with emotion, yet the sincerity in her gaze was unmistakable. Mary stepped closer. "What if recalling your son not only honors his spirit, but also allows you to embrace the space he once filled? It may be a journey through sorrow, yet in acknowledging his memory, we may also birth a deeper appreciation for the love shared during his presence. Could we not find a bittersweet gratitude that deepens our understanding of joy and loss?" A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, yet uncertainty lingered like the chill of early dawn. Before the villagers could respond, the elder interjected. "Let us consider, too, what stands in the way of our blessings. What doubts, what wounds bind us? In our exploration, we may encounter more than mere stories who might face the very truths that shape our lives. That a breeze swept through the assembly, rustling the leaves of a nearby tree. The smell of earth and distant blossoms filled the air, prompting the farmer to ponder aloud. Could these very gatherings we speak of breathe new life into old burdens? Might there be strength in sharing that which we have deemed unspeakable? Mary sensed a shift, a flicker of light breaking through the clouds of despair. Yes, there is a palpable strength in vulnerability. What if our shared stories, laden with sorrow, became seeds planted in the soil of understanding? In our willingness to journey together, we might cultivate not only gratitude, but also compassion for one another's struggles. As they continued to exchange thoughts, another Villagerie young woman, whose laughter once filled the air, spoke softly. But what if some moments seem too broken for healing? If gratitude feels far away from certain memories, how are we to approach them? With a heart full of empathy, Mary replied, "In its rawness, even our brokenness can teach us. Each moment, whether painful or beautiful, is part of our tapestry. What if we learned to acknowledge the depth of our feelings without judgment? Could that be the first step toward cultivating a more profound gratitude, even in our darkest hours?" The weight of her words resonated deeply, the truth carving its place within their hearts. Yet, amid the hope, an unease lingered like a shadow. If they ventured into this gathering, would they indeed find the courage to confront their innermost fears? What might they discover about the nature of gratitude when faced with the shadows they had long tried to forget? And would their hearts truly embrace the transformation awaiting them in the light of a new dawn? As the first light of dawn began to filter through the trees, painting the world in hues of gold and soft pink, the villagers gathered once more, their hearts heavy with the expectations of the elder's call. Mary arrived early, sitting quietly beneath a great oak where she could feel the earth pulse with life beneath her. The stillness around her was akin to the breath before a storm, full of potential yet tinged with apprehension. One by one, the villagers trickled in, their faces marked by the vulnerability they had shared the night before. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken hopes and fears as they took their places in a circle, each person carrying their burdens silently for fear that speaking them might splinter the fragile unity they had begun to forge. The elder stood at the center, his eyes scanning the faces before him. "Today, we embark on a journey together," he began, his voice carrying the weight of wisdom and compassion. "To unravel the roots that bind us, we shall share not only our blessings, but also our fears. We must not shy away from the darker corners of our hearts." As he spoke, a feeling of unease washed over the circle. Would their stories be met with understanding, or would they stir up pain that had been held far too long? The farmer, seated near the edge, shifted nervously. What if in our exploration we find truths too challenging to bear? He questioned, concern etched on his brow. Mary felt the tremor of shared anxiety ripple through the air. What if we considered that embracing the darkness does not mean being consumed by it? She offered, "Instead of fearing our shadows, perhaps we should welcome them as teachers, each memory, each scar telling a story of survival." The elder nodded, a glint of understanding sparking in his eyes. "Indeed, we may find that nestled within our wounds are the seeds of our strength, waiting for the light of acknowledgement to bring them forth." As the villagers began to share, one by one, woven narratives unfolded. A young man spoke of his restless spirit, yearning for adventure, yet plagued by doubt. A widow recounted the quiet moments spent with her beloved, moments now shadowed by the weight of his absence. Responses mingled with solaces each voice shared. The complexity of human experience wove them closer together. Yet as they ventured deeper, a palpable tension mounted, especially when silent fears were unearthed. It was the woman with silver hair who spoke again, her voice steady yet trembling. "What if my son's absence is not merely a loss, but a lesson in resilience? How can I express gratitude for that which feels unbearably painful?" A hush fell across the circle, and Mary felt every heart drawing in a collective breath, understanding the labyrinthine nature of love and grief. "Perhaps gratitude does not exempt us from suffering," she suggested gently. What if instead of distancing ourselves from the pain, we allowed ourselves to see it as an integral piece of our lives? A conflicting harmony in which joy and sorrow coalesce to form a fuller understanding of love. They paused, letting the weight of her words settle among them. In that space, the air seemed charged with whispers of acknowledgement, and a single thought dawned on Mary. Could embracing the entirety of their experiences grant them a gratitude that transcended mere words? Before they could respond, a rustle in the bushes nearby startled them. From the shadows stepped a figure cloaked in tattered robes, their face obscured. Startled glances exchanged among the villagers grew tense, bordering on hostility. "What truth do you seek?" the figure called out, their voice resonating with unseen depths. "You ponder courage in the light, yet fear veils your understanding in the dark." With that, the strange figure stood at the edge of their gathering, eyes pooled with a knowing intensity. Mary felt a chill run through her as she realized that their exploration might lead them somewhere they had not anticipated. Were they truly ready to confront all aspects of their beings, the hidden truths, the painful memories, the ugly truths, lying just beneath their skin? And so the question loomed as they looked upon the cloaked stranger. In their quest for gratitude, were they prepared to confront not only the shadows, but also the truths that resided in the heart of their darkness? Would they embrace the transformative journey resting before them? Or would they retreat into the comfort of their unexamined lives? The cloak of morning mist began to dissipate, as did the calm, gentle threads of the earlier conversation. Several villagers exchanged uneasy glances. The unsettling presence of the cloaked figure shifted the air, ripe with questions hitherto unconsidered. The elder, with a measured breath, stepped forward, his voice unwavering yet humble. "What wisdom do you bring, traveler?" he asked, both intrigued and wary. The figure straightened, the cloak falling away slightly to reveal the contours of their face, a mixture of youth and age intertwined like ivy on a crumbling stone wall. "I am but a seeker like you," they replied, their voice soft yet commanding. "I come bearing truths that lie trapped within your hearts, those truths you dare not whisper aloud." With every word, the air grew denser, as if the very universe held its breath. Mary's heart quickened. Each villager seemed suspended in their own introspection, acutely aware of the shadows that danced between the words spoken and unspoken. "What truths could you unveil that we do not already bear?" the widow asked, the fire of vulnerability lending strength to her question. The figure's gaze pierced through the tension. "Answer me this. In your quest for gratitude, what do you truly seek? Is it merely a golden sun rising after a storm, or the very storm itself? Can you truly embrace the light without grappling with the dark that birthed it? Look within. What do you fear losing more? The darkness you comprehend, or the light which you chase blindly?" The villagers squirmed in visible discomfort, the depth of the inquiry extending beyond the simplicity of gratitude they had initially sought. "We fear what is yet unknown." Mary spoke boldly, her voice gaining clarity. "But perhaps ignorance serves our fears too well. Isn't that the path to freedom, to recognize the depths that our gratitude must delve into?" "Ah," the figure mused thoughtfully, their expression imbued with both warmth and challenge. "And yet, freedom is seldom uncomplicated. Your gratitude, you see, is a delicate plant, a wildflower that grows best when nourished by the shadows of your sacrifices. The roots that anchor it often dwell in despair, sorrow, and regret, those very things you wish to escape." This notion sank into their collective consciousness. A ripple of silence flowed through the group. The elder nodded slowly, a soft frown deepening on his brow. "Then we must not recoil from our pain, but instead weave it into our tapestry of understanding. If gratitude is the sunlight, sorrow must bear its existence, lest one flicker without the other." The cloaked figure extended a hand, and the villagers leaned in, captivated by the unfolding revelation. "What if I told you that the act of confronting your shadows might unearth a deeper gratitude than you ever imagined? In your darkest hours lie the seeds of compassion, understanding, and ultimately, your capacity for love that a sense of transformation began to unfurl among them, like the pale pink blossoms of an early spring. Could it be possible that in confronting their burdens, they might find a way to transmute those burdens into something beautiful? Mary's heart stirred at the thought. A deep, resounding thrill of adventure ignited within her once again. As the strange figure continued, a new sense of urgency emerged. This journey you have begun cannot find its solace unless you turn to the ugly, the misunderstood, and the forgotten within you. Only then will you find a resonance of gratitude that shakes the very foundations of your existence. And yet, a tormenting thought gripped Mary. Would their spirits be strong enough to withstand such an awakening? As the villagers sat with their newfound hesitation, she realized that the true challenge lay not in fabricating gratitude from joy, but rather in uncovering it from depths best left undisturbed. The cloaked figure's visage began to fade into the backdrop, and their departing words lingered like whispers in the wind. Remember, it is not the absence of shadows that defines the light, but the understanding that light shines brightest when it embraces all aspects of its being. In the stillness that followed, the question loomed larger than the morning sun. Were they prepared to unearth their inner turmoil, not merely for the sake of growth, but for the very foundation of gratitude that could shift their reality? In seeking the depth of their whispers, could they truly transform the mundane into the extraordinary? As the cloak of dawn fully lifted, the village stood in an unusual silence, the villagers hanging on the figure's words long after the shadow had receded. What had begun as a quest for simple appreciation had morphed into an urgent quest for meaning, unearthing the undercurrents of their lives that had long laid dormant and untouched. Mary felt a stirring within her, a complex web of anticipation and trepidation. Could the path ahead truly lead them into the depths of their own souls, unveiling both the sacred and the sorrowful? She turned her gaze toward the elder, whose brow was furrowed, but whose eyes held a glimmer of newfound resolve. Perhaps, he began, breaking the stillness, we must explore the very history that has woven itself into our lives. Each of us carries stories laden with shadows, the loss of loved ones, failures that haunt us, dreams that endlessly elude our grasp. To honor these, should we not gather, share, and transform our burdens into lessons of gratitude? The widow, whose heart had always carried the weight of silent sorrow, nodded slowly. I have been afraid to share my grief, thinking it a sign of weakness, but could it be, as the traveler suggested, that it would be my strength instead? Is there not power in vulnerability? Another villager, a stoic man who often went unnoticed, added, to confront our pains might just be the first step to finding the gratitude within. The shadows do not vanish, but can become part of the whole instead of a fragmented burden. Encouraged by the sense of purpose threading through their discourse, the folks gathered in a circle, a new kind of vulnerability coating the air. Mary felt the warmth of unity begin to blossom within the circle like the first light of morning. Each person began to share fragments of their story's dusk, lingering in their pasts, compassion unfurling to greet them. Each narrative was a tapestry woven with moments of regret, heartache, and the bittersweet essence of life's tumult. The widow spoke of the laughter of her children lost early to illness, of hope riddled with waves of sorrow. The elder shared tales of his youth, where dreams slipped through his fingers like grains of sand. As these stories spilled forth, a sense of communal weight began to melt away, revealing a flicker of kinship. Mary listened intently, her heart swelling with the understanding that together they crafted a narrative that expanded beyond the individual and coalesced into a tapestry of shared existence. Yet amid the warmth of connection, shadows still flickered at the edges of their conversation. Just as gratitude began to thread through their collective vulnerability, doubts surfaced like dark clouds on a brightening day. But what if my shadows are too heavy? Whispered one of the villagers. What if my burdens have no redeeming quality? Mary swallowed hard, reflecting on her own hesitations. Perhaps, she ventured, the tough truths we face, those haunting echoes of life, are indeed what summon gratitude into being. Could our light not shine most vibrantly when darkest nights have been navigated? The group fell into contemplation, absorbed by the weight of her question. They were verging on revelations entwined with uncertainty. What if the darkness spawned within their stories was not a burden, but rather the raw material for understanding and connection? Was it their fear, rather than acceptance, that kept them captive in their isolation? As the sun rose higher, illuminating the villagers who shared their truths, they began to sense the transformation taking shape. However, even amid the dawning hope, fresh shadows of doubt wormed their way back into their hearts. The cloaked figure's words reverberated heavily in Mary's mind. Only through confronting your shadows will you open the door to gratitude. An unresolved question loomed heavily in the air as they shattered the silence once more. Are we truly ready to embrace the complexities of our shadows, to invite grief into our homes, in hopes that one day it may lead us towards an extraordinary transformation? The dawning realization hung, like a fragile thread, poised between dread and hope, urging the villagers to take that next step into the unknown. As morning unfurled with a soft glow, the villagers lingered in the aftermath of their heartfelt exchange. Mary scanned their faces, noting the mixture of resolve and hesitation that marinated in the air around them. Could their collective yearning for understanding bear fruit in the soil of their shared vulnerability? The elder, sensing the palpable tension, rose slowly from his seated position. Let us consider a truth that remains hidden beneath the surface of our conversations. There exists a deeper harmony within the chaos. The threads from which our lives are woven aren't merely colored by grief, but also by an ineffable grace. His voice wavered slightly, a testament to the depth of the courage required to confront his own past while offering guidance. With a nod from the widow, emboldened by the intimacy forged in their sharing, she rose to her feet. It often feels as though our sufferings drown out the whispers of hope, she confessed. But perhaps we must learn to listen closely, not just to the sorrows, but to the lessons nestled among them. The love I lost remains an indelible part of me, yet so too does the love that surrounds me still. Can we see that our losses do not erase our capacity for joy? A sudden gust of wind danced among the trees, as if echoing her sentiment. The villagers nodded, feeling the strands of their stories knitting together into a larger narrative. But just as hope began to lift their spirits, the phantom of doubt lurked still, reminding them of their fractures. And what are those heavy burdens that seem immovable? Interjected the stoic man from before, his brow lined with skepticism. Is the act of sharing enough to truly lighten our loads, or might it only serve to deepen our disappointments? A contemplative hush claimed the group, permeating through the blossoms of understanding they had begun to nurture. Mary's heart raced. The thought had crossed her mind too. Would speaking their truths only expose deeper wounds instead of leading them towards healing? She took a breath and with a steady voice said, "What if embracing our burdens is less about alleviating pain and more about acknowledging its place in our lives? Understanding it may lead us to find ways of honoring the love that remains." The elder looked at her, recognizing the courage woven into her words. He leaned forward. What if we approach our shadows with curiosity rather than fear? The essence of gratitude might reside there, waiting, asking us to dive deeper rather than run away. His eyes sparkled with a hint of the otherworldly, as though a veil was lifting, revealing the sacredness within their struggles. Mary sensed a divine whisper threading through their discourse, drawing them closer to an unexplored facet of their existence. Yet as they ventured further into introspection, it dawned on them that knowing a truth does not equate to understanding it. Each villager wrestled silently with their own Pino words could truly capture the essence of their experiences. It became clear that amid their collective strength, an invisible weight still lingered, for how could they honor their shadows while yearning for light? Perhaps the act of gratitude lies in our willingness to keep searching, Mary ventured, looking to each face gathered there, to show up each day, even when the past beckons us back into its embrace. Could gratitude not be a compass guiding us through the treacherous terrain of our hearts? The crowd simmered, considering her words. Could they emerge transformed, bearing the weariness of their pain while still celebrating the specks of joy, that flicker of hope? As they mulled this over, a lingering thought unfurled within Mary, unraveling a new question that hung in the air. What might we discover in the shadows if we allow ourselves not to resist their presence, but to walk alongside them instead? The villagers stood poised on the cusp of understanding, but the path ahead remained shrouded in uncertainty, leaving them to reflect on the delicate dance between sorrow and gratitude that awaited them. As the sun hung high, bathing the village in warmth, a new understanding blossomed among the gathered villagers, each heart tethered in a shared journey of vulnerability and revelation. The air was thick with possibility, a divine resonance that echoed through their spirits, weaving a tapestry of hope threaded with the nuances of their darkest fears and deepest joys. Mary could feel the weight of their collective yearnings pushing softly against the walls of her own heart. Each story shared had etched simple yet profound truths into the fabric of their being, revealing the power of vulnerability in unlocking a deeper sense of connection. Yet a soft, lingering doubt remained, swirling in the undercurrent of fear that to confront their shadows might unearth pain too unbearable to bear, perhaps shattering the fragile threads of newfound unity. The elder, a figure of gravitas, broke through the stillness, his voice steady like the roots of the ancient oak under which they gathered. "We are all learners in this grand journey," he declared, inviting them to reflect on the very essence of their shared humanity. It is important to honor our grief and yet equally sour gratitude. In unison, they guide us through life's storms. The words reverberated in the hearts of the villagers, igniting a flicker of recognition that perhaps they had been seeking the light without fully acknowledging the shadows that gave it depth. Mary, feeling a swell of courage, rose gently and took a step forward, her voice unwavering. "Let us not forget," she began, her gaze meeting each face, "that gratitude is not a mere reaction to joy, but a deeper acknowledgement of the fullness of life, the interplay of light and dark, joy and sorrow. In our darkest moments lies the fertile soil from which our deepest gratitude can spring forth. One by one, the villagers began to nod, as though the truth in her words resonated within them, a shared heartbeat echoing through the air. The widow, her heart now lighter after having voiced her silenced grief, spoke softly but confidently. "I see now that to remember my love is not to dwell in despair, but to honor the life we shared. Gratitude for what brought me joy can coexist with grief for what is lost." The realization hung in the air, as simple, yet profound, truth merging their stories and scars into a collective narrative that transcended individual pain. As they listened to one another openly, the shadows that once seemed insurmountable began to soften, yielding space for compassion and understanding to take root. Suddenly, the farmer, who had been hesitant and burdened by his own despair, rose to share. "It has always been easy to count my misfortunes, hold them close, too fearful of what they reveal to let go," he confessed. "But now I glimpse within me the quiet strength that accompanies my struggles. While the frost still bites, I am learning to see the beauty of resilience. What if gratitude springs from nurturing that which feels broken, rather than erasing it?" A wave of agreement rippled through the circle, as the others were emboldened by his courage. The stoic man, who had spoken of burdens before, raised his voice. "Then it is settled. We must cultivate the space for our truths to coalesce into a powerful gratitude, forged through understanding and acceptance. To speak our grief and joys is to reclaim our narratives." With that, a new spirit arose among them, uniting their voices in hope. The burden of each story became lighter as they shared in their experiences more openly, embracing the vast spectrum of joys and sorrows that define the human experience. It was a pact, a mutual promise to walk forward together, hearts bound by the understanding that gratitude was forged not in the absence of pain, but in its presence, and this journey was not to be traversed alone. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows that seemed to dance in recognition of their revelation, a powerful stillness enveloped the villagers. They sensed that something profound was taking shape, gentle transformation emerging from the willingness to confront unimaginable shadows, confronting fears with compassion. Mary smiled as warmth enveloped her spirit. Their hearts had begun to unravel the heavier threads of isolation, threading them into a collective story of resilience. The elder spoke once more, words punctuated by the soft rustle of the leaves. Today marks a dawning one that transcends our differences and darkness. The birth of gratitude begins with acceptance. It stirs our souls into awakening, kindling a fire to illuminate paths not only for ourselves, but for all who walk alongside you. As the air filled with an electricity of hope. Mary understood. Their hearts were awakening not only to their own light, but to the vast interconnectedness encompassing all beings. She felt as if the stars had aligned, fashioning an unbreakable thread that bound her spirit to Thyrsa's glorious tapestry weaved from the essence of shared existence. And then, amidst rising excitement, came a breakthrough moment. A voice emerged from deep within her heart, one that resonated with clarity. What if we invite others to share in this journey, to teach through our vulnerabilities? Our stories could become a beacon, illuminating paths for those lost in the shadows, helping them find gratitude within their own struggles and journeys. The villagers stared at her in wonder, contemplating the magnitude of the idea. A silence descended, but it was a silence filled with potential, as they reflected on their collective power, the gift of healing through shared experiences. The elder's eyes sparkled with wisdom as he suggested, "Today, let us each commit to inviting one soul, a neighbor, a friend, a wanderer, this gathering of gratitude, to witness our journey as we continue to weave our stories, reinforcing the fabric of our community." As nods of consent filled the circle, Mary felt a wave of joy wash over her. In that moment, she realized the extraordinary power held within the simple act of gratitude, and she understood that it would serve as a lantern, guiding not only their lives, but also all those who sought the light. They stood together, rooted in a newfound hope, their hearts already alight with the anticipation of their journey forward, a journey filled with transformation, where scars became badges of honor, and vulnerability morphed into strength. The whispers of gratitude would now echo through the village and beyond, a call for all aching hearts to awaken to the beauty that exists within both joy and sorrow, in that sacred space. Mary understood a profound truth, that the magic of gratitude is not a conclusion to a tale, but rather an ever-evolving journey, a transformative revelation that fosters connection, healing, and the courage to embrace a life replete with blessings masked in both light and shadow. And as the sun began to set, casting golden hues of twilight upon the gathering, they welcomed the mystery of the night ahead, unafraid and resolute, hearts eternally hopeful, ready to walk into the dawn of a new story, one written in gratitude, vulnerability, and love.